The knock came after the children were asleep. 3 sharp raps that cut through the wind's howl like a blade. Through canvas. Cole Dawson froze, one hand on the coffee pot, the other instinctively moving toward the rifle above the mantel. November wines in Montana territory didn't bring visitors at midnight. They brought wolves, desperation, or trouble wearing a human face. He crossed the cabin in 4 strides, boots silent on worn planks. Through the gap in the curtain. Moonlight painted frost silver across the yard. Nothing moved except the barn door, creaking on its hinges. Another knock. Softer this time. Almost apologetic. Cole opened the door to cold that bit like teeth and a girl holding 2 shivering children. She couldn't have been more than 22. 23. Her coat was thin, patched at the elbows. The boy clinging to her skirt looked maybe 4, his lips blue in the lantern light. The girl beside her, perhaps 6, had eyes too old for her small face. "Can we sleep in your barn?" "Mr." Her voice was steady despite the tremor in her shoulders. "Just till morning. We won't be trouble." Cole's jaw tightened. His own children, Jacob, 8, and Mary, 6, slept in the loft above, safe, warm, innocent to the kind of desperation standing on his porch. "You running from something?" "Just running to somewhere safe, sir." The little boy's teeth chattered loud enough to hear over the wind. Cole saw Samuel's face, that's what he'd name him later, though he didn't know it yet, and saw only cold and trust, and a child who didn't understand why the world was so hard. He stepped aside. "Barn's warmer than the wind. There's blankets in the tack room." Relief softened her features for half a second before the survival mask returned. "Thank you." She turned toward the barn, children tucked close. Cole watched through the window as she struck a match, lit a stub of candle. The flame flickered, but held. He'd buried his wife 3 years ago, buried his heart with her. The cabin had been silent since safe, controlled, manageable. Now a stranger's candle burned in his barn, and the silence felt less like peace and more like cowardice. Cole closed the curtain, poured cold coffee down the sink. Outside, the wind picked up. The first snowflakes began to fall. A man's barn says more about him than his handshake. His father used to say, Cole hoped his said mercy. He feared it said fool. Dawn came gray and reluctant, the kind of light that made shadows linger. Cole found the barn cleaner than he'd left it, stalls mucked, hay restacked, a loose board nailed tight. The girl had found his tools, used them with skill, and returned everything to its place. She stood near the back, braiding her younger sister's hair with quick, efficient movements. The boy sat on a hay bale, gnawing on something that looked like hardtack old enough to vote. "Morning," Cole said. She turned, no surprise in her eyes. She'd heard him coming, survival instinct. "Morning, sir. We'll be out of your way soon as the sun's proper up." Cole held up the basket he'd brought. Brought coffee and biscuits, still hot. Her gaze flickered to the food, then away. Pride warred with hunger. Hunger never won fair, but pride always put up a fight. "We don't take charity. Mr. Dawson, Cole Dawson." He set the basket on a barrel. "And it's not charity if you've already earned it. That board's been loose since September." She studied him with the same careful assessment she'd probably used on every man since she started. Running, looking for the angle, the cost, the catch. "Nora Hale," she said finally. "This is Emma and Samuel." Through the barn door. Cole saw movement, his own children peering around the cabin corner. Mary waved shyly. Emma waved back, tentative as a bird testing a new branch. "Got breakfast inside if you're interested. Proper table, warm stove." Nora's spine straightened. "We work for what we take, Mr. Dawson." "Then call it wages. Barn work's honest work, and you've done half a day's worth already." She wavered. Samuel looked up at her with eyes that had learned not to ask for things. That look decided her. "One meal, then we'll be on our way." Inside, The cabin smelled like wood smoke and frying bacon. Jacob sat at the table, wary but curious. Mary had already claimed the seat next to Emma, chattering about her doll. Cole poured coffee while Nora served the children with practiced efficiency, them first, herself last. Smallest portions. He'd seen his own mother do the same during lean times. "Where you headed?" he asked. "West. Heard there might be work near Helena. Long walk with 2 little ones. We manage." Jacob spoke up, voice cracking between boy and almost man. "Where's your pa?" The question hung like smoke. Nora's hand stilled on her cup. "Gone," she said. One word. It carried the weight of 100 stories. None of them good. Cole recognized that weight. He'd carried his own version since Anna died. He didn't press. Outside, the sky had darkened from gray to charcoal. Fat snowflakes drifted past the window, the kind that meant business. "Storm's coming," Cole said. "Big one. You'll stay through it." Nora's jaw set. "We've weathered worse. Not like this. Montana storms don't ask permission, they take what they want." She met his eyes. Saw something there. Maybe. Or maybe she was just tired of fighting every single thing. 2 days, she said. Till it passes. But Cole nodded. You rope what you ride with. His father used to say, he just roped a storm and 3 strangers to weather it with. The wind picked up outside. The first real gust hit the cabin like a fist. It would be a long 2 days. It would be longer than either of them knew. The laughter was what broke him, Jacob teaching Emma and Samuel a hand-clapping game his mother used to play. Cole stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the main room, coffee growing cold in his hands, watching his son smile for the first time in months. Really smile. Not the polite version he wore like armor. Mary sat beside Nora near the fire. Head tilted as gentle hands worked through tangles Cole never quite managed. Nora braided with the kind of expertise that came from years of practice. Muscle memory older than thought. 3 years. It had been 3 years since anyone had braided Mary's hair like that. The memory hit him sideways, Anna. Heavy with child. Laughing as she tried to teach him the pattern. Over, under, pull, Cole. You're making a knot, not a braid. He'd never learned. Mary wore her hair loose now, or in simple ponytails he could manage. Anna had died the night Mary was born. Bled out while the midwife tried everything and Cole stood useless in the corner, watching his wife slip away because he'd chosen land over life. He'd bought 20 acres that spring instead of keeping money for emergencies. Doc Miller had wanted payment up front. Times were hard, he'd said. Couldn't work on promises. Cole had promised next month. Next month came too late. The land don't lie. And neither should a man's conscience. His father always said. Cole's conscience had been lying to him for 3 years, telling him he deserved the silence, the emptiness, the slow death of living without actually being alive. "Mr. Dawson." Nora's voice pulled him back. She was looking at him with concern that felt too intimate, too knowing. "Coffee's cold," he said, dumping it in the basin. Outside, the snow had intensified. What started as flurries now fell thick and deliberate. The kind of storm that buried fences and trapped travelers. The kind that killed if you weren't careful. Cole checked the window. Couldn't see the barn anymore. "It'll last a week. Maybe more," he said. "You'll need to bring your things inside." Nora stood. The barn's 20 degrees colder and getting worse. No sense freezing for propriety. She studied him again with those 2 careful eyes. "People talk, Mr. Dawson. Then let them talk till their tongues fall out. I'm not sending children back to that barn in a blizzard." Something shifted in her expression. Not trust. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. "Just until the storm breaks," she said quietly. "Just until—" He helped her retrieve their things, a battered canvas bag. A quilt so patched it was more repair than original. A wooden box she held like it contained something holy. She didn't explain, and he didn't ask. They set up pallets near the fire. The cabin felt crowded in a way it hadn't in years. Crowded with breath and movement and the sound of children's voices. Anna's rocking chair sat in the corner, untouched since her death. As Nora passed it, her fingers brushed the armrest gentle, respectful, like acknowledging a ghost. She must have been special, Nora said softly. Cole's throat tightened. She was. I'm sorry. Me too. Night fell early, the way it did in storms. Cole banked the fire while Nora settled the children. Mary refused to sleep unless Emma was beside her. Jacob helped Samuel build a fort from blankets. Cole lay in his own bed, listening to the breathing of 6 souls instead of 3. The cabin creaked under wind and weight. Snow piled against the north wall. Through the darkness. He heard Anna's chair rock once, just the draft. He told himself, just the wind. But it felt like permission. Or maybe just goodbye. By the 3rd day, Nora had mended every fence board Cole had been meaning to fix for 2 years. Not that they could see the fences. Snow had buried the world shoulder high, turning the homestead into an island in a white sea. Cole had strung rope from cabin to barn, the only safe passage in a storm that erased horizons. Inside, a rhythm developed. Nora cooked with efficiency that spoke of years making much from little. Cole taught her to shoot, taking her out during a brief lull to practice on targets tacked to the barn wall. Squeeze, don't pull, he said, standing behind her, adjusting her stance. Let the shot surprise you. She fired, hit center mass. Not my first time, she admitted. Figured. You hold a rifle like you mean it. Had to mean it. Men don't always take no for an answer. The words hung between them, not quite warning, not quite confession. Cole stepped back, giving her space. Wolves, he said carefully. We're teaching you for wolves. She lowered the rifle, met his eyes. Sure. Wolves. They walked back to the cabin. Halfway there, reaching for the guide rope at the same moment, their hands brushed. Both jerked back like they'd touched fire. Sorry, they said simultaneously. The awkwardness carried into the cabin, where Jacob and Emma had built an elaborate snow fort using furniture and blankets. Mary taught Samuel to count using dried beans. Normal. Almost achingly normal. Then came the knock. Cole opened the door to find Mrs. Brennan, the nearest neighbor, bundled against cold with a basket of preserves. Her eyes went straight past him to Nora, who stood frozen near the stove. Cole, Mrs. Brennan said, smile brittle as January ice. I wanted to check on you during the storm. I see you have company. Nora and her siblings. Storm caught them. How charitable. The word dripped judgment. A young woman, unchaperoned. I'm sure there's a perfectly innocent explanation. She's helping with chores, that's all. Mrs. Brennan's gaze lingered on Nora's worn dress, the children's patched clothes, assessing, calculating, finding them wanting. Of course. I'm sure your dear Anna would understand. She set the basket down. People talk, Cole, especially about widowers and girls alone. After she left, the cabin felt colder despite the fire. Nora began packing. What are you doing? Cole asked. Saving you trouble. You're no trouble. She turned, eyes hard. I'm always trouble. Mr. Dawson, story of my life. Best I leave before it gets worse. Storm's not done. I've weathered worse. Mary appeared at the top of the loft ladder. Is Miss Nora leaving? The question small, scared. Innocent stopped Nora mid-motion. No, Cole said. Not sure who he was answering. Nobody's leaving till spring. Some fences are meant to fall, his father used to say. Cole felt one breaking inside him. The careful fence he'd built around his heart since Anna died. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something quieter but just as powerful began to shift. Cole found her by the dying fire, staring into embers like they held answers. The children slept his in the loft, hers on pallets nearby. The cabin was dark except for firelight painting shadows on log walls that hadn't heard adult conversation in years. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Nora didn't look up. Thinking. He added a log to the fire. Sparks flew up. Brief constellations before dying. He sat in Anna's chair without thinking, then froze. "It's all right," Nora said softly. "She'd want someone to use it." "You sound sure." "I'm sure of the kind of woman who'd raise those kids." Kind recognizes kind. Cole leaned back. The chair creaked familiar protest. "Tell me about your father." She was quiet so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "He was good once. Before Ma died. After, he tried. He really did. But grief and whiskey make poor company." "What happened?" "Gambled away the farm, piece by piece, hand by hand. One morning I woke up and he was gone. Left a note saying he couldn't watch us starve because of his failures." She laughed. Bitter. "So he left us to starve anyway. How long you been running?" 2 years. Odd jobs. Moving towns when people start asking questions. People see a girl alone with children and think the worst. Easier to keep moving than fight the talk. Cole understood that. Fighting talk was like fighting wind, it just kept coming. "I failed Anna," he said quietly. The words came easier in darkness. "Chose land over keeping money for emergencies. Doctor wanted payment up front. I promised him next month. She died that night." Nora turned to him finally. "You didn't kill her. Mr. Dawson. Life did. You just had the misfortune to survive. I chose wrong. You chose hope. Hope needs land to grow on. She'd understand that." Something in his chest loosened a knot he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten it was tied. "Cole!" he said. "What? Call me Cole. We're past Mr. now. I figure." She smiled. Small, but real. "Cole." A sound from the loft, Mary, crying softly. Nora rose automatically, but Cole waved her down. "I got her." He climbed the ladder, found Mary tangled in blankets, whimpering. "Mama?" she whispered. "I'm here, sweetheart. I dreamed she was braiding my hair, but when I turned around, she was gone." Cole held his daughter while she cried for a mother she barely remembered. When the tears slowed, Mary looked up at him with Anna's eyes. "Can Miss Nora stay forever?" The question struck like lightning. "That's complicated. Honey, Emma says Miss Nora keeps them safe. I want to be safe too." "You are safe. Not the same kind. The kind where you're not sad anymore. Children saw too much, felt too much, survived too much by knowing what adults tried to hide." Cole climbed back down to find Nora standing at the window, watching snow fall silver in moonlight. "She asked if you could stay forever," he said. Nora's shoulders tensed. "What did you say?" "I said it's complicated. It always is." She turned. "I should tell you I can't stay. When spring comes, we have to keep moving. That's just how it is." Why?" "Because people like Mrs. Brennan exist everywhere. Because my father's debts follow me. Because I won't ruin your life just because my own is ruined. What if it's not ruined? What if it's just paused?" She stared at him, in firelight. Her eyes glistened. Don't what? Don't give me hope. It's cruel." Cole crossed the room slowly, like approaching a spooked horse. Stopped just close enough to matter. "My wife loved me enough to give me Mary," he said. "You think she'd want me dead inside for the rest of my life? I think she'd want you careful about who you let close to those children. I think she'd like you." The words hung between them, fragile as first ice. Nora's voice broke. I'm trouble. Cole. I've always been trouble. Then maybe I need some trouble in my life. She laughed and cried at once, hand over her mouth to keep quiet. Cole didn't touch her, not yet. Wasn't the time, but something had shifted irrevocably, like a river changing course. Outside, the storm began to ease, not over, but breaking. The church doors felt heavier than usual, like they knew what waited inside. 2 weeks since the knock. The storm had finally broken 3 days ago, leaving the world crystalline and still. Cole had spent those days debating bring Nora to service or leave her home. She'd made the choice for him. I won't hide. Hiding means shame, and I've done nothing wrong. So here they were, Cole, Jacob, Mary, Nora, Emma, and Samuel, walking up the church steps while the congregation watched through windows. Inside was worse. Whispers followed them like flies. Cole felt eyes on Nora, assessing, judging, finding her guilty before she'd even sat down. Reverend Kent preached about charity. The irony was thick enough to choke on. After service, the congregation gathered in the yard coffee. Gossip. The weekly ritual of small-town judgment dressed as community. Cole was pouring coffee when Reverend Kent appeared at his elbow. Brother Cole, might I have a word? They walked to the side of the building. The Reverend's face was kind but firm. The expression of a man delivering bad news for your own good. I'm concerned, he said carefully. That young woman in your home, unchaperoned. People are talking. Let them talk. It's not that simple. The town council has expressed concerns about your fitness as a father. Cole's blood went cold. What? You're a good man, Cole. No one doubts that. But appearances matter. A widower housing a young woman of questionable background. Questionable. She's a girl keeping her. Siblings alive. Could be seen as morally unsuitable. They're discussing whether intervention might be necessary. For the children's sake. That the threat was veiled but clear, conform or lose Jacob and Mary. Cole opened his mouth to respond when a voice cut across the yard. Anna's barely cold 3 years. And you're housing some drifter, Travis Dunn, Anna's younger brother. Cole's brother-in-law stood near the church steps. His face was red. Whether from cold or rage, Cole couldn't tell. This is family business. Travis. Exactly. Family. Anna was family. That girl is nothing. The crowd had gone silent. Cole felt every eye, every held breath. This was the moment they'd been waiting for, the scandal confirming their suspicions. Anna would have invited her in the first night, Cole said quietly. Wouldn't have thought twice. Anna's not here to speak for herself, is she? The words were designed to wound, and they did. Cole saw Nora near the wagon, face carefully blank. Emma and Samuel clung to her skirts. Mary was crying. Travis stepped closer. You want to disgrace my sister's memory. That's your choice. But I'll be damned if I watch you do it with her children in that house. Those are my children. For now. The threat hung in the frozen air. Cole's hands clenched. A man's word is his bond unless he's a coward hiding behind a dead woman's name. But before Cole could respond, Nora spoke. Mr. Dawson. Her voice was steady. Dead. We should go. They rode home in silence. The children sensed the tension, staying quiet in the wagon bed. Snow squeaked under wheels. The sky was winter blue, beautiful and indifferent. At the cabin, Nora climbed down and began packing. What are you doing? Cole asked. Saving your children? You don't have to. Yes, I do. She turned, eyes bright but dry. I won't let you lose them for me. I won't be the reason they grow up without their father. Nora, thank you for the shelter, for the kindness, for... Her voice cracked. For everything. She finished packing in silence, Emma and Samuel stood by the door, confused. Mary tried to follow them out, but Jacob held her back. Cole stood on the porch, watching them walk away. His feet felt nailed to the wood. Fear paralyzed him, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of living versus fear of existing. He watched until they disappeared beyond the ridge. Then he went inside to a cabin that felt like a tomb again. The silence returned like a sickness familiar, suffocating, fatal. 3 days. 3 days since Nora left, and the cabin felt wrong. Meals were mechanical. Jacob refused to speak to Cole. Mary cried herself to sleep every night, calling for Emma. Cole tried to explain, tried to make them understand. But how do you explain cowardice to children who only understand honesty on the 4th day? Cole rode to Anna's grave. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the valley, wind-scrubbed and lonely. Anna's stone was simple. Anna Dawson, beloved wife and mother. He'd chosen those words 3 years ago when words felt impossible. Now they felt insufficient. I don't know what to do, he said to the stone, to the wind, to the ghost of the woman he'd loved. Travis says I'm disgracing your memory. The Reverend says I'm unfit. And His voice broke. I feel alive again. Anna, for the first time since you died. Is that wrong? Does loving someone else mean I loved you less? The wind answered with silence. Cole knelt, clearing snow from the base of the stone. His hand touched something flowers. Wildflowers. Dried but carefully placed. Fresh. Within the last few days, Nora had been here, had been visiting Anna's grave all along, honoring the woman whose place she feared taking. The realization hit him like lightning. She hadn't been trying to replace Anna. She'd been trying to honor her, and he'd let fear and judgment drive her away. Cole. He turned. Moses. The old ranch hand who'd worked this land longer than Cole had been alive, stood at the cemetery gate. His face was weathered leather, eyes sharp as winter stars. Heard what happened? Moses said. Everyone's heard. Come to tell you you're a damn fool. Cole almost laughed. Get in line. Moses limped closer, joints protesting cold. Your Anna was good people. Best I ever knew. You know what she'd say about all this? No. She'd say you buried your wife, but don't bury yourself too. That girl gave your kids their smiles back. What are you going to do about it? It's not that simple. The council, Travis, the whole damn town. The town don't raise your kids. The town don't lie awake at night missing what it had. The town's just noise. Son, question is whether you're going to let noise drown out truth. Cole stared at the grave. At the flowers Nora left? At the evidence of a heart big enough to love a dead woman's memory while trying not to replace her? I'm afraid, Cole said quietly. Then be afraid and do it anyway. That's what courage is. Moses turned to leave, then paused. The land holds what you're willing to fight for. You figure out what that is. You let me know. He left Cole alone with the grave and the wind and the choice that had always been there. Fight or flee. Live or exist. Love or hide. Anna's stone caught sunlight, glinting like encouragement. Cole stood, brushed snow from his coat, looked west, toward the ridge where Nora had disappeared. I loved you, he said to the grave. I always will. But you loved me enough to give me Mary. I think you loved me enough to want me to live, too. The wind picked up. The land held what you were willing to fight for. Cole walked to his horse. He had a town meeting to crash, and a girl to bring home. Cole walked into that meeting like a man approaching the gallows, except this time he chose the rope himself. The town hall was packed. The whole community had turned out, drawn by gossip and the promise of scandal. Travis sat in front, arms crossed. Reverend Kent looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Brennan whispered to her neighbor. Cole didn't wait for permission. He walked to the front, turned to face them all. I have something to say. Silence fell like snow, every eye fixed on him, curious, judgmental, expectant. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. Some of you knew her. Anna Dawson was the best thing that ever happened to me. When she died, I died too. Kept breathing, kept working, kept raising my kids, but I wasn't alive. I was just existing. His voice was steady. Years of swallowing grief had taught him control. 2 weeks ago, a girl knocked on my door, asked if she could sleep in my barn. She was young, alone, desperate, had 2 children depending on her. I could have said no. Should have, by some standards. But I let her stay. Travis shifted. Cole met his eyes. You want to judge her, judge me. I'm the one who was too afraid to live until a girl barely older than a child taught me what courage actually looks like. She kept her siblings alive for 2 years on nothing but grit and prayer. She worked harder in 3 days than most of us work in a month. And she left flowers on my wife's grave because she has more grace in her little finger than this whole room. Combined, Mrs. Brennan's mouth opened. Cole kept talking. You think I'm disgracing Anna's memory? I'll tell you what disgraces her, me dying slow in that cabin. Teaching my children that love is something you do once and never risk again. Anna loved life. Loved fiercely. And I'm pretty sure if she was here, she'd tell me to stop being a coward and start being the man she married. His voice cracked. He let it. I loved my wife. Losing her near killed me. But hiding from life dishonors her memory more than finding joy again ever could. He looked at Travis, saw tears on his brother-in-law's face. I miss her too, Travis said quietly. Every day. But you're right. Anna would have liked that girl. Probably would have loved her. The admission shifted something in the room. Mrs. Brennan looked down. Reverend Kent's expression softened. Cole continued. So here's what I'm saying. Nora Hale and her siblings are coming back to my home. If the council wants to question my fitness as a father, they can try. But they'll have to prove that loving someone, that teaching my children compassion and courage is somehow harmful. And I'm betting they can't. He waited. No one spoke. That girl asked to sleep in my barn. I gave her shelter. Now I'm offering her a home. Anyone got a problem with that? You take it up with me. Not her, me. The silence stretched. Then, surprisingly, Mrs. Brennan stood. I was wrong. She said. Her voice shook but held. I've watched that girl work. Watched her with those children. She's got more integrity than half this room. Maybe we're the ones who should be ashamed. Others murmured agreement. The tide turned slow but sure. Like snow melting under spring's sun. Reverend Kent cleared his throat. Perhaps we were hasty. Perhaps we forgot what charity actually means, not judgment, but grace. Cole didn't wait for more. He left the hall, mounted his horse, and rode west. He had a promise to keep. You can't rope a sunrise, but you can ride toward it. Spring came late that year, but when it arrived, it brought more than thawed ground. It brought forgiveness. Cole had tracked Nora to the next town over, found her in poetically another barn. She'd been trying to find work, sleeping where she could, keeping her siblings fed. Come home, he'd said. She'd argued, he'd persisted. Finally, she'd asked the only question that mattered. What changed? I stopped being afraid of living. That had been 3 months ago. Now, early May. The homestead bloomed. Wildflowers dotted the meadow like scattered stars. The expanded cabin, built with help from neighbors who'd spent months atoning through labor, stood solid. Against the mountain backdrop, Cole and Nora worked side by side, repairing winter's damage to the fence line. Their hands were easy together now, practiced. No more flinching, no more fear. Emma wants to plant a garden, Nora said, hammering a post. Mary wants to help. They've been planning it for weeks. They get along like they're actual sisters. Maybe they are. Nora paused, looked at him. Cole, I'm not proposing, not yet, just stating facts. She laughed, and the sound was water over stones natural, effortless, real. Jacob and Samuel ran past, chasing something only they could see. Emma and Mary followed, braids bouncing, laughter bright as morning. Moses appeared from the barn, wiping his hands. Fence won't fix itself. You too. And there's hungry mouths expecting supper. We're coming, Cole called. The old man grinned. Better be. I didn't help build that extra room just to watch you dawdle. He disappeared inside. Nora touched Cole's arm. Thank you, she said softly, for standing up, for not giving up. Thank you for teaching me to live again. They walked to Anna's grave later. After supper, Mary had picked wildflowers purple and yellow and white. Nora helped her arrange them at the stone's base. Is Mama sad we're happy? Mary asked. Cole knelt beside his daughter. No, sweetheart. I think she's glad. Miss Nora says Mama's watching over us. Miss Nora's probably right. They stood there together, Cole, Nora, and the children before the grave of a woman who'd loved enough to want her family whole again. The evening stretched gold across the valley. Supper waited. Life waited. As they walked back to the cabin, Cole took Nora's hand. She didn't pull away. Through the window, they could see the barn door open, lantern burning inside, a flame that refused to die even in the coldest night. Jacob called from the porch. Supper's ready. Inside. The table was set for 6. Laughter and warmth filled rooms that had been silent for too long. Home ain't walls, Cole thought. It's who you let in. Nora caught his eye across the table, smiled that small private smile that was just for him. Outside, twilight settled gentle over the land. Wolves howled in distant hills, but they were far away and getting farther. The homestead stood solid. The family built from strangers and storms and stubborn hope sat down to eat. Sometimes mercy arrives in the dark, asking for shelter. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to answer, it saves you right back.